Hello and welcome back to Disney Journey. You can see behind me that this retired Imagineer is not in Lost Canyon. Nope, this is the ocean. And the water in it turns my thoughts to thinking about water rides. And that is the topic of this episode, water rides in the Disney parks. So get your water wings, your raft, and let's get started. During a hot summer day and a visit to a Disney theme park, I'm easily persuaded to climb aboard one of the raft rides, which are in 3 of the Disney parks. I mean, it's always a nice little break, it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's really much more of a family-friendly ride, or thrilling ride, not a thrill ride, than can be found in a lot of the Disney parks. It's something for truly the entire family. Now, granted, it's really at its peak during the hot summer months, but if you put on your poncho, you can ride in the winter as well. Now, this ride, although popular and in 3 of the Disney parks, was not an invention, not introduced by Disney. Oh no. This ride was introduced by another theme park, and this theme park was in the state of Texas. In Houston, Texas, Astroworld was the first fully enclosed air-conditioned baseball stadium, but it was just part of a complex, which was called Astroworld. It had an arena, the ballpark, and a theme park. Now, as part of Astroworld, they had an invention, which was Thunder River, and it was the very first rapids ride. Although Astroworld had the first of the rapids rides, the technology behind it was remarkably simple. It was a combination of high-pressure pumps that would deposit water at the top of a slope and then be directed down a channel that would have wave machines and bumpers and other obstacles in the channel that would create rapids, with the entire point of the ride is to get people as wet as they possibly could. Now, typically the rapid ride vehicles were 12 passenger, although there were variations that were 8 and even 6. No matter the number of people in a vehicle, everyone enjoyed it, and this ride became a standard throughout the industry, finding its way into park after park after park. And essentially they all followed the same format. A big oval loop that when you turned off the pumps, all the water would pool in the bottom of what became an instant reservoir. Six Flags Over Texas has a classic version of this ride. Large raft, oval course, and reservoir at the low end. In addition, this ride was fun to look at, and typically a lot of parks would have that ride, and they would have pathways around the ride. So even if you didn't want to get wet, you could still vicariously ride the ride. But if you did board it, well, prepare for a soaking. Now, the ride, as I said, went to a lot of parks, and locally to where I am, Six Flags Magic Mountain here in Valencia, California, had their version, which they called Roaring Rapids. Now, remember that name because it's about to become important later in this show. In time, there were technological improvements. I rode a version at Spielland, which featured not a typical lift, but a vertical lift. One where literally they pulled the raft to the top of a tower and then dropped it down a slide. Now, if you hadn't been wet on a typical classic version of this ride, you certainly got soaked on this version. But like the classic, it became an instant success and found its way into many, many parks, such as SeaWorld in Orlando, where their version is called Infinity Falls. And it follows a different course. It's not a loop or an oval, but it crosses over and under itself. Following a figure 8 course solved one of SeaWorld's problems, which is that they had limited land. It also meant that the course was a lot more complex and therefore more surprising. Now, they also adopted a smaller raft. But as you can see, their plan, well, it did cross over itself, and therefore it was a lot of fun. The first time Disney deployed this ride system was over in Disney's Animal Kingdom. Originally called Tiger Rapids, it then opened as Cali River Rapids. Not an opening day attraction, but one that soon followed, set in the Asia section of that park, surrounded by, as everything else in Animal Kingdom, immense, dedicated attention to authentic detail, with animals, props, show design, set design, thematic plasterwork, thematic paint. It goes on and on. The last time I was in the park, I just simply walked the queue. I didn't even get on the ride. And I counted that as time well spent. Cali is unique because for that ride, the reservoir that held all the water was not as part of the ride, but it was behind the ride. It has its own dedicated reservoir. Regardless of where the water is, once the pumps start running, it operates like a typical ride, fun and wet. The second deployment of this ride system was at Disney's California Adventure. This opening day attraction was located right in the center of the park, so guests could either ride the Rapids ride, they could walk around the Rapids ride, or even take a pathway through the Rapids ride. But regardless, the concept art led to a rockwork model, which then led to the construction. You gotta love that flag on the bear's nose. And then finally to the opening day. As I said, it's right in the center of the park. And it's a ride that's gotten better with age. When the trees that were planted in the early 2000s grew and grew and grew, they created a forest, creating an urban oasis in a park that unfortunately has a lot of concrete. I mean, I love Cars Land, but it is a desert. So often when I go to DCA, I will make a little detour to walk around Grizzly, to take the Grizzly Trail that leads underneath the lift mechanism, and where close by is located the inlet for the water that flows from the reservoir from here. And that's located over in Paradise Bay. You can see a little bit of trickle here in the video. And that feeds into the lagoon that fills up and then recedes, depending upon whether or not the ride pumps for Grizzly are turned on or turned off. Basically, the story is the tides come in and the tides go out. So it's hiding in plain sight as far as this reservoir, which makes Grizzly Peak truly unique, not only among the Disney parks, but among raft rides in general. This complex water management system allows for many effects: streams, rapids, rushing water, all to create a beautiful, clear, and inviting attraction at Disney's California Adventure. The creative team who worked on this ride talked about the research that they did going to the rapids in California to incorporate things like this, the pinball rapids, in addition to the other types of rapids that people will see. But what was unique was the spinning drop, which was an invention for this ride in a Disney park. This spinning mechanism ensures a teacup style thrill for what would be otherwise a typical water drop. The spray caused by the drop did have an effect, an unfortunate effect, because a lot of trees did not survive. So the answer has been over the decades to replace the foliage periodically to find something that will survive that chemically treated water. But meanwhile, it's always good to take a moment on a hot summer day there at DCA and walk along the Grizzly Trail to kind of get away from it all, because again, it's a beautiful area, a quiet area of the park. And you know, parents with children, I've seen a lot of them just take their little kids when they need to have a break. They go here. Besides, there's Mr. Bear. Remember earlier in the show I talked about, remember the name Roaring Rapids? Well, it comes into play here in Shanghai Disneyland, where on Adventure Isle they also have the third of the 3 raft rides we'll talk about there at Shanghai Disneyland. This raft ride is in a park where it gets very hot and very muggy, and it's very appreciated to go and have a raft ride. Now this one also is unique because it has a large show building contained within the mountain, and in front of it, it has the Challenge Trail, which is a version of a ropes climb, which I think is fantastic. It's fun. I did it. I don't think I'll ever do it again, but I'm glad I did. As far as the ride itself, it's the fastest of all the 3 Disney Rapids rides, and it's the only one that has a large show building with this large animated figure, the Crocosaurus, and it will get your attention. And at the end, you pass over this bridge and then underneath for the big, thrilling flume drop, landing in the geyser field. Adventure Isle is very rugged, very majestic, with this large peak with waterfalls, props, shopping, dining, all the usual suspects, and this happy llama. The Challenge Trail with its rope course is challenging. I sincerely doubt that the legal requirements mandated in the United States would ever allow this to be replicated, but man, it was fun. And if you don't want to try the Challenge Trail, there are other pathways that, well, they weave in and out of the mountain, even under the waterfall. Bring your umbrella. While the Rapids rides were not technology invented by Disney, they did take and improve upon the technology. And each of the 3 are very unique, quite different, and a lot of fun. Some have animated figures. Cali has fire effects. The Rapids ride, although not invented by Disney, is a great example of Disney taking something, then lavishing money and design upon it to make it better. With that, this episode is drawn to a close, but there'll be another one soon. Meanwhile, be sure to like and subscribe to this channel, and also, well, send me your comments, because I do read every one. Until the next episode, it's goodbye from not Lost Canyon, but from the Pacific Ocean in Central California.